Treyarch are undoubtedly the masters of Easter eggs and callbacks, but how many of those have you missed, especially the ones hidden in plain view? Today we're going to take a look at 12 different Easter eggs hidden in plain view that either may have some hidden implications, may affect the overall story and universe that Black Ops 4 looks to set up, or just maybe some fun, witty callbacks to other moments within the Black Ops franchise. So with that in mind, let's just jump right into it. Let's start out with ones that you see right at the beginning. Right whenever you start up the game, there's two in particular that I think are rather interesting here with this one. The first one we'll come across deals with a dossier that is on screen for a brief second or two, and it might have been in the first iteration of the loading screen of Black Ops 4, but it's definitely here, and as of the Operation Absolute Zero, current loading screen is one that you can see at the very moment whenever you load up Black Ops 4 every single time. But in the backdrop of the title card of a Treyarch game, you end up seeing that again there is a slight piece of a dossier off to the right, and up in the top it says confidential 2/25/1968. Now, this is something that for a lot of locations around the world, it might not seem like all that much because the dates might be flipped to 25/2/1968 in the way that your formatting may be. But for 2/25/1968, based off the Black Ops franchise, that signifies February 25th, 1968, which is a callback to the mission Revelations from Black Ops. Now, for those of you guys that played through the Black Ops campaign, you know this is the second to last mission of that, and it's kind of that unraveling point where you figure out everything that was really happening, how everything was really in your mind. And it was one of the big pivotal moments within the Black Ops franchise and even Call of Duty franchise as a whole. So while it more so pays homage to Treyarch's history more than anything else, it is cool to see that pivotal moment immortalized within this loading screen that we'll see every single time. And even just in passing, though you might not know it, it's a cool callback to one of the best points in the franchise. A few frames later, we'll see our second Easter egg here in this video dealing with the same loading screen, but you end up seeing that it takes you to right about the shore where you see Hijacked, the few apartments, and then the bird's eye view of construction in Blackout. Now, upon this, you see a couple of circled areas, which to my knowledge doesn't really signify anything, but you also see a few coordinates there listed right above those red circles. Now, when you put those into Google Maps or anything like that, it'll take you to Santa Monica, California, and more specifically, the Treyarch HQ. The offices of Treyarch and where the game is actually made and developed, and so therefore kind of a cheeky little Easter egg showcasing just a little fun fact of where everything came from. As for a few more callbacks, let's take a look at a couple of others. Let's go over to the map Nuketown for this one, because while Nuketown may still have a few secrets that we haven't seen as the general public, we finally got it in private matches so you can do the mannequin Easter egg, all that kind of stuff. But while there might be some few things still hidden about in the map, we can take a look at some stuff that we already can see immediately and not have to do any convoluted steps or anything. So for this next one we'll be taking a look at is a callback to the original Nuketowns and the double rainbow that you end up seeing. Now, in theater mode, it can be a little bit tough, and even in game, it can be a little bit tough because it has to be at a certain right angle to be able to view it perfectly. But if you take a look at the house with all the phones in it, the sort of war room house, if you take a look at back where the kitchen would be, you end up seeing that there is a sort of strategic board with a map, all sorts of pieces, and then a mover as well. Plus, you have the rocket and some other interesting little references to the map as a whole. When you take a look at this, though, if you find it at the right angle, you can end up looking that there is the double rainbow going over that map. Now, Nuketown is home to a lot of little Easter eggs and callbacks, especially within Black Ops 4, and so therefore I want to take a look at another one real quickly before we jump into some others, that dealing with this sort of ongoing Easter egg or callback or reference, whatever you want to call it, within each map and variation throughout the franchise. Now, each time we ended up seeing a brand new introduction to Black Ops in the way of Nuketown, we saw that the mailboxes changed. Now, in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, they were the same. They just still continued the same sort of lineage because all characters were present. We ended up seeing in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, Mason and Woods as the denoted mailboxes for this little setup neighborhood and the houses that you can enter. Now, for Black Ops 3, you end up seeing that it had Corvus and Hendricks as the mailboxes, that being the sort of overall entity of the DNI plus the character that you were. But in Black Ops 4, you end up seeing that we now have callbacks to other characters within the franchise, those being the most prominent probably of the Russian heritage, that being Reznov as well as Petrenko. Now, it's curious to me because we end up seeing that normally these mailboxes have something to do with playable characters in the game or key components of the storylines at hand, and Black Ops 4 might just be callbacks because we don't have a campaign, we have the Specialist HQ, but Reznov might be a viewable reason as to why he's in Blackout, and also a little bit of that backstory we've hinted at here on the channel a couple of times, but Petrenko's not really in that same case, so he might just be sort of there for reference. But regardless, those are the mailboxes that continue on a multiple year Easter egg throughout Treyarch now, and every iteration of Nuketown. Moving along though, we'll see another callback to something also within previous versions of Black Ops, but not in Black Ops 4, surprisingly. Whenever we take a look at it, if you take a look at the 1-0 emote that was available in the shop for a very limited time, it was, I think, a part of the special orders and something you had about a week to redeem on that. Xbox One and PC users actually, I still think, have the ability to view this up until Tuesday, but for PlayStation 4 users, this is coming past, and so therefore, you might not ever see it. But there is an emote where Zero pulls out a tablet and starts to game on it, and whenever you take a look at that, if you can really zoom in on this, this is a callback to Dead Ops Arcade, and it actually explains a little bit of the reasoning as to why we had a Dead Ops Arcade asset leak a couple of months ago, right before we ended up seeing Seaside Sunset and Firing Range Night added, and it was a part of that title update that kind of prepped the game for that content to come out. Along with that, we saw some assets dealing with Dead Ops Arcade, in which there was a combination of old assets plus new assets, so people got really confused. Were we going to get Dead Ops Arcade and Black Ops 4? And it turns out it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. Instead, it was just sort of prepping for an emote that was going to be coming in and utilizing those pieces as a little callback that if you catch it at the right angle, you can see it on the tablet. The next one up on this list is one that deals with an interesting callback that you guys may never have known about, that being the legend of Tambor Fudgely. Now, for those of you guys that have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, you can actually end up taking a look at the area just outside of Rivertown, right before you go into the desert biome in Blackout. There's that sort of little strip of houses in which it's right next to the boxing gym. Right by the bridge in Grade F6, you end up seeing there is a monument to one Mr. Tambor Fudgely, and this actually is tied into the Blackout Dark Ops challenge to pay your respects to Tambor Fudgely. And so if you want to cross-check and validate that this is a real thing, plus also get a challenge out of the way, feel free to. But Mr. Tambor Fudgely is a made-up entity who is the mythical founder of Treyarch. It's a sort of inside joke amongst everybody at Treyarch that, while he realistically was not the one that founded the company, he's that sort of ideology that people look towards, that whenever you get stressed out by how much work you may have to do, he's the sort of guiding light that gets you through it. It's just sort of an inside joke within Treyarch, but it's one that the general public probably has no idea about, and so therefore, whenever you take a look at this, it might just be something you think is actually in the lore for the Black Ops franchise, but it's really not. It's more so just the lore of the backstory of how the games ever came to creation. Another Easter egg within Black Ops 4 is, I think, a little bit of an older one. I don't think it's really as relevant right now. I think it might have been a little prediction for the hijacked ship coming within Blackout, but it is something that if you take a look at, again, right around that area off in the docks, you can end up seeing that one of the ships has a TV monitor with a lot of different diagnostics and statistics dealing with other ships within Blackout. When you translate the Russian, you end up getting a lot of different things just regarding, say, observation, diagnostic error, some of the things like the engine, radar, storage tank, the status on all that kind of stuff, but it's something that hinted towards a ship of some sort. And while it might be hijacked, the one thing that is curious to me whenever I first came across this is, why is it in Russian if not only one, Blackout is supposed to take place in California, but two, hijacked really doesn't have any sort of backstory as being Russian either. Maybe a nod to the Rusalka from Black Ops 1, but as for why, again, that wouldn't really make sense unless we see that being another sort of interesting addition to Blackout in the future. Regardless, that's one that is kind of in passing, interesting and kind of quirky. Another one deals with then some zombie stuff within Blackout, and this is where it could be just Easter eggs, but it also could, again, tie into the backstory of Black Ops 4, because without giving you too much information, without spoiling the big sort of explanation, everything that I have planned out that I've been drawing up as what I hope is the best way to explain it possible, everything is connected within the Black Ops universe. Black Ops 4 kind of takes every individual part and pieces all these storylines together, kind of threads them into one needle, rather than having multiple different aspects having their own separate universes. We end up seeing for this first one the Blackout Holly's Cream Cakes, which is located definitively at the gas station near Lighthouse. I think there are a couple where there's other locations that you can end up seeing that poster, but the Holly's Cream Cakes is a callback to Shadows of Evil and the Trip Mine Easter egg that you can end up doing with that. So if you ended up doing the Trip Mine Easter egg, it would actually explode donuts everywhere, or cream cakes rather, all across the map with those trip mines. So it's a fun little Easter egg that really just kind of changed the aesthetic of how things would explode within the game, but fun no less. In terms of other zombie stuff, we end up seeing there are across a lot of different locations perk posters in Blackout as well. Again, a lot of the times you'll see them at the gas stations or convenience stores. Those are probably the most prominent locations here of them, but they are around a lot of Blackout. And so again, why they're sort of all connected here with that one, well, that might have an explanation for another day. But the final thing that we talk about in terms of Easter eggs within Blackout for at least zombies content is that if you go down into the Nuketown bunker, you can end up seeing in one of the locations that the Wolf King painting from Der Eisendrache is actually in there. So why, again, is a big question, and kind of, again, more so points to me as that this is all connected and overarching in one giant story now at this point, that everything is a part of the more so upper storyline we'll discuss very shortly here on the channel. But it's a reference to something that there's no other assets in the game that relate to Der Eisendrache within either Blackout or zombies even at this point to my knowledge, but this one lone poster that was a big key portion of the Easter eggs around there and setting up the backstory of zombies is seen prominently within Nuketown Island and the bunker there. And the final Easter eggs we'll talk about have some interesting little properties to them. The first one we'll just knock out of the park real quick because it's just a fun little Easter egg that I thought was kind of funny, is that whenever you take a look at the map Seaside, it's a sort of Italian village and one based around obviously a church. But whereas you'd end up seeing road signs in other maps or even road signs on Seaside itself have different sort of designations for vehicles, you end up seeing near the church by the one back spawn that there's a sign for monk crossing or priest crossing. And so that's a fun little nod just to play at the surrounding environment. But the final thing that I do want to talk about deals with, again, Nuketown in particular, because it might hint at something coming in the future. We saw this happen within Black Ops 3, but if you take a look at the garage in Nuketown across from the Reznov house at the Petrenko house, you end up seeing that in the garage there's an armory of multiple different Dragunovs on the wall, and also in a sort of armory cabinet, a bunch of different AK-47s. Now, we have a KN-57, which is very similar to that of the AK-47, but we also have seen different crossovers from DLC weapons in the past with Black Ops 3. So it is possible. As for likely, who knows, but we did see that again in Black Ops 3, some of the DLC maps did have hints towards future weaponry being added into Black Ops 3. So who's to say the same thing can't be done for Black Ops 4? Treyarch are masters of laying things out in plain view for all to see, so while it might just be aesthetic, it also might be a hint. That's where we're gonna wrap it up. I think we're gonna call it there, so hopefully enjoy the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anything that you guys would like to add to this video that you'd like to see featured as another Easter egg, or anything that you found in particular? Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, multiplayer, Blackout, zombies. We got you covered. The best of updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. Well, that's it. Out of the way. Thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.